All right, good evening. Welcome to the March 27th, 2024 meeting of the Wilmington School Committee. All members are present. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next item is the student representative report from Wilmington High School, Addie Benoit and Zim DeHart.
Hello. Hello, and thank you for having us again. So going all the way back to February, the Peru trip happened. And as someone who was on the trip, I can say that it was absolutely amazing. Students were able to visit several sites of Inca ruins, local markets, and try local food. And the highlight of the trip was visiting Machu Picchu. There were amazing views, and it was a wonderful experience overall.
The Model UN Club visited Boston College High for a conference where they were able to debate topics such as the future of the British monarchy, the Roman Senate, China and Taiwan relations, as well as stolen antiquities.
The DECA Club attended their annual states competition with the 41 students who advanced to the competition from districts. They competed against around 3,800 other students from over 120 other schools. Several students even qualified for international competition in April, which takes place in Anaheim, California. Our Quiz Bowl team also came in 4th out of over 100 other teams.
During World Languages Week, students would speak in a different language on the morning announcements every morning. And other students attempted to guess the language for a chance to win a gift card.
A junior at the high school named Shivram Perot, who you've likely seen taking pictures at athletic events, had his photographs of basketball and hockey featured in the Boston Globe's high school sports section.
At the recent STEM fair, there were over 400 elementary students and around 50 volunteers from the high school who helped to run the event and just engage with the kids.
Wildcat Week, which was March 11th to the 15th, was an absolute success. Each day was a different theme for students to dress up as, including class color, barbecue parent versus soccer parent, rhyme without reason, beach for ski, and look of the Irish. Students started off each day with trivia, and every lunch featured games like Connect Four, Spike Ball, and puzzles. Every day, a stuffed animal of Willie the Wildcat was also hidden for students to find. On the last day, students walking into the school were able to grab a picture with Willie the Wildcat himself. Each class earned points from these events, and the seniors absolutely destroyed the competition. This past Monday, we had our reward, which was an ice cream social.
Newsies went off without a hitch. The Lamplighters Drama Club presented and broke a couple of club records. There was even a cameo from Mr. Miranda there.
On the 15th, there was a spring festival, which featured a cornhole tournament, musical chairs, knockout, and karaoke.
This week, the 10th grade students have been taking MCAS. We wish them all good luck.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Questions or comments?
Thank you for attending. Thank you.
Only add my kudos to the Newsies production. Outstanding for 3 terrific performances. Thank you. All right, now we have some very special recognitions to give out in the area of athletics. Dr. Brand?
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everyone. And let's get Mr. Ingram to come forward. We have just wrapped up the last sports season as we transition to the spring season, but certainly a tremendous opportunity here to pause and recognize the contributions and success of many of our student athletes. And so, Mr. Ingram, with that, I know you have a few things to share.
Great, thank you. First off, special shout out to Madison Benoit. I was talking to her this morning. She just got accepted to George Washington. Does a great job.
Good for you.
Good job. Thank you all for having me here. Thank you, Dr. Brand, and the members of the school committee for recognizing these 5 outstanding athletes and their accomplishments. Without a doubt, a lot of hard work and dedication went into achieving these awards and championships. I'd like to say congratulations to the coaches that are here, and thank you for all the time and the effort you put in to supporting our athletes. I'd also like to say congratulations to the families of our athletes, probably the #1 support system that our athletes have. Countless amounts of rides to practices, games, and meets. It's probably seemed like thankless tasks at the time, but congratulations and thank you for all of your support.
Round for the parents.
And lastly, congratulations to our outstanding athletes. I am incredibly proud of your achievements and know you represent yourself, your team, your school, and your community outstandingly at all times. Now, Dr. Brand will call them up individually, and Dr. Brand will have a certificate for you. First off, we have an MVP, the girls indoor track, Addison Hunt. She's accompanied tonight by Julie and John Hunt, and Coach Patron. Addison, want to come right up? Okay, next up we have an MVP of our girls hockey. She is accompanied by her parents, Lisa and Scott McKenzie. Lily McKenzie. Quick note on Lily, she surpassed the 100 career points total this season, becoming only the 7th Wilmington High School hockey player to achieve that. Congratulations. Next up, we have a state champ in Division II for swimming, the 500 freestyle, accompanied by her parents, Crystal and Thomas Kelly. Kyla Kelly. Coach Sue Hunter is here, who was also recognized as Coach of the Year. Congratulations to her. Next up, we have a state champ for Division III wrestling and an all-state champ at the weight level 126. She cannot join us tonight. She is busy at practice, training for the Nationals, but her parents, Jeff and Jennifer Bryson, are here, and accepting on her behalf is Coach Kevin Riley. And next we have a New England champion from gymnastics in the bar routine, Allie Ganley, her parents Kimberly and Kenneth Ganley, and Coach Kristen Hannon. Thank you again for all your time, and congratulations to the athletes, families, and coaches. We really appreciate you taking time out of the busy agenda and sneaking us in. Thank you very much.
All right, those are outstanding accomplishments, and we're so proud of all of you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our consent agenda, and there are a number of things in here that we usually like to stop for. So I think we will do a bunch of this in order rather than all in one giant crouch here. So let's begin with the approval of the minutes for the March 13th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Burns, second by Mr. Turner. All in favor? And
I'll abstain. I wasn't here.
all right, so that is 6 in favor and Mr. Fennelly abstaining as he was absent. Next, we have approval of the band camp 2024 trip, and I believe that we have Mr. Farah, or no? Okay. I mean, what, we're not going to approve band camp? Motion to approve band camp. All right, motion from Dr. Bryson, second by Ms. Burns. Yeah, band camp is great.
All in favor?
All right. And band camp is approved unanimously.
For the record.
Item C, Galapagos Islands field trip. And I do believe we have some people here to talk a little bit about this. Ms. Kim and Ms. Burns and Ms. Daly.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here tonight to discuss our proposed trip to the Galapagos Islands. My name is Megan Burns. I am a Spanish teacher here at the high school, and I've been teaching for 20 years. This is our second trip, or will be our second trip, hopefully pending approval. And we had a successful trip to Peru in February, and we brought students to Machu Picchu, which was a great time.
My name is Jess Daly. This is my third year teaching here in Wilmington. Next year I'll be teaching the new AP Environmental Science class. I'm also involved with several other things in school, including yearbook club. So I have previously been to the Galapagos, which is my claim to fame for this trip. I went for a semester when I was in college in 2016. I lived with a Spanish-speaking family, and I got to do pretty much all of the things that we'll be doing on this trip. And I also took almost all of the pictures that you'll see in this slideshow from the Galapagos.
Good evening. My name is Julie Kim. I'm the head of science. And like Megan said, we had so much time in Peru that we want to go back and travel. And this is a truly interdisciplinary opportunity because we're going to open it up not only just to Spanish students, but also to any science students. So you just had to have completed a science course successfully and be interested in science. So that's the question. Let's talk about the Galapagos. So the Galapagos are a group of islands. It's right out off the coast of Ecuador to the west. And Ecuador is about an 8-hour flight from Boston. And then from Ecuador, we'll then travel about 2 hours to the Galapagos Islands. Megan's gonna go over, and then the trip, we really loved Explorica. They were just amazing. And so we were like, you know, from everything, they had all the food, all the hotels, the private bathrooms, the tour guides, all the tours. They were just so professional, and we enjoyed it so much that we're like, let's do it again, but this time with more of a science tilt, right?
So our first day, we'll get to Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. We'll do some sightseeing on day 2, including this monument where the northern and southern hemispheres meet. And we'll get to practice our Espanol, which is the highlight of the trip for me, of course. Day 3, we'll head to the Galapagos Islands. We'll go to Santa Cruz, which is the main island there. And we'll get to check out some craters and lava tunnels. Next on day 4, we will get to see the giant tortoise breeding center. On day 5, we get to walk around a volcano and have some beach time as well. On day 6, we can see the Darwin Research Station, so named after Charles Darwin. And we have penguins that we're going to see as well as some iguanas. And on day 7, we head back to Quito, where on day 8, we get to walk around a market and do a little bit of shopping and practice our Spanish once again. And then we'll head back to Wilmington from there.
Yeah, so we will be communicating with families with daily emails. And then towards the middle of the tour, Explorica will then start posting some pictures in the tour diagram. And then also in the evenings, we will post Instagram highlights of our day, which is always lovely because kids loved when I took so many videos and pictures of them. And you might be wondering, like, how much will this amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience cost, right? I mean, it's priceless, but the kids can actually have this experience with 3 actually amazing teachers and all their friends.
School committee members, welcome.
There is, you know, some limitations, right? However, we were able to negotiate a price so we can have this all for just under $4,000. So we have this $200 discount. So this includes everything. It's about $350 per month, and I think it's 376 days until the trip. So it would happen next April. So we would leave on a Thursday, come back that Friday, and then they would have the weekend to kind of recover. So next year, Good Friday is super late, Easter's late, so we would have an extra travel day. So we thought the timing was kind of perfect. We will be limiting the trip to the first 30 students that actually register through Explorica, and then any students after that, there will be a waiting list. Just due to the fact that we have to take a smaller plane, and then from that little airport, we will then be shuttled around via boat and smaller vehicles. We just can't bring like 90 kids to Galapagos. It'd be just too crazy, right?
So we also have a few students who are here to speak about their interest in our trip. So I'll turn that over to them. So we have
Welcome.
Claire and we have Jacoby here.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. My name is Claire Susi, and I'm a sophomore here at Wilmington High School, and I'm very interested in going to the Galapagos Islands because I've always been very interested in science, but I'm also very interested in being able to explore and learn about these new areas in a supervised environment while also getting to spend time with my peers.
My name is Jacoby Tibbetts. I'm also a sophomore, and I'm really interested in going because I went on the Peru trip earlier this year, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it would be a really cool opportunity to see all the different animals they have there, all the exotic animals.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, if you have any questions, tienen preguntas. Solamente en español, por favor.
Oh, Portuguese. All I can say is close the door, go home, and thank you.
Ms. Burns.
This is on my bucket list because anybody I've met who's gone to the Galapagos Islands, they just, to speak about it is, you just can't put it into words. The beauty, just the animals in their natural habitats. It's so enticing. But I do have to ask, and I think we come up with this in every time we have a trip. I think it's a great trip. A little sad, but absolutely understand the having to limit the number of students. And just under $4,000. That's reasonable considering where you're going. You know, the flight, the hotel, the activities. That's reasonable. So, any ideas, whether primitive or not? What type of fundraising are you thinking of or could be done, or have you discussed about maybe trying to alleviate some of those costs for those students and chaperones too? So
Absolutely. So I did 2 fundraisers for the trip to Peru.
Yeah.
We did a fundraiser where the kids sold different things out of a catalog. It was called Cherrydale was the name of the company.
Okay.
Explorica had offered a few options for that. So that was one thing. The students can also set up their own fundraising page. So they can kind of send it out and, for any holiday or birthday, they can, request that people, contribute to that rather than getting them a gift.
Do you think that maybe students who have signed up, the 30, get together and combine forces to?
Oh, most definitely.
That?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So we're planning on having our student meeting on Monday.
Okay.
Just to talk to the students, to discuss options, financial aid, and then also any scholarships. I think on Explorica also, it says if you need financial aid, they can also offer a little bit more of a discount.
Wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful.
And I think we always ask the students, we can help you, we can mobilize you to do the financial aid, but a lot of the families, they just realize that this is such a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And traveling is not cheap, especially with all of the transportation costs and the boat costs and the plane costs.
Right.
I think in a parent's sense, if I was bringing my family here, it would cost me this times 4.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's only 1/4 the cost I'll send my child, right? And I think that's what they realize is that it's a trip that not a whole family could do sometimes.
Right.
And just to even, I think we have a snorkeling day also, so that we're going to be out in the boat, in the ocean, so.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm jealous, but I thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate all of your time and effort in organizing Peru, and I appreciate all the time and effort in this as well. Two things. One, on the form itself, it talks about a returning student versus new student, 2 different fees. because of the two things. One, that seems a little bit odd, considering this is an enormous cost and a family might only be able to do it once. It seems odd that there's a difference in price. I would kind of think it would be better if it was a single price. And then actually, because of the limited size and that maybe is repeat students the ideal group to give a discount to? In some ways, we would want more kids exposed to this sort of a trip. So just a little bit of oddness about that particular piece. And I know it's not a huge difference percentage-wise, but, and the other thing is, and I'm going to bring this up at the point where we talk about the Ireland trip as well. Between Germany and Ireland and Peru and the Galapagos Islands, some of the students are seeing some amazing places. And part of what I wonder, without almost bragging about, hey, we got to go to these places, how can we bring these experiences to the kids who can't afford or aren't able for other reasons to go? Maybe something just to brainstorm amongst yourselves and with the students. What can be done before or after to help bring in the kids who can't go for whatever reason? And again, I'll bring it up with the group running the Ireland trip as well. It's just some of the kids do get to do a lot of this, and some kids don't. And so just how can we kind of bring these to them? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on those at some point. Not tonight necessarily.
Mm-hmm. All great points.
Thank you.
Ms. Benoit.
I just want to say, as someone who has traveled with both of them, it was an absolutely great experience, and I'm sure they'll have, if you guys approve, they'll have a great time on this trip.
Thank you, Maddie. We enjoyed having you on our trip very much.
Maddie's
vote. If I could vote.
Maddie votes in favor.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments, Dr. Bryson?
So again, thank you for organizing this. We're so delighted. So just so happy trips are back, really back. Like we're really doing these trips, so it's exciting. Similar to Mr. Turner, and I understand the April break, or any break, a lot of our athletes don't get to participate in some of these trips, which is not on this particular trip, but just I think for us to think about, because there are things going on during these breaks. So I think that's just something for us to think about. I hadn't really thought too much about it till you mentioned there are students who aren't participating for a number of reasons, but one of them being varsity athletics are running all through February and April vacations. So again, maybe it's just one of those things they can't do, but I think it's something we should probably think about.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why we decided April vacation instead of February is I think when winter sports, a lot of their the championships, they happen right at February vacation. And so the students were like, oh, we almost couldn't go because we would have made it to, right? And so we're like, all right. And so I was thinking, well, in April, it's just beginning. So maybe that doesn't conflict with that. So that was a definite, one of the reasons why we figured it's easier to miss April than February.
I think that's probably true, yeah.
Especially with track and swimming and wrestling, right? A lot of those.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And there's also the nice option of the Ireland trip, which is at the end of the school year.
Which school committee members couldn't go to that one either, just for the record. we need to fix this problem.
Maybe you need a leadership retreat.
Oh, that's what for you.
Yeah. All budget. Sorry.
You got a line item for that, right?
You're fine.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
All right. Any other questions?
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Jeff.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the Galapagos trip? Motion by Mr. Fennelly, second by Dr. Bryson. All in favor? And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just following up, and thank you so much, folks, for your leadership around this. I've actually been in touch at the suggestion of some of you around trying to get a sense of the landscape of the high school for travel plans. And I've talked with Principal Gendron about this, and as well as Mr. Maloney. And it's understood the cost of these trips is obviously a lot. But it would also be helpful, I'm sure, for students and families to have a little bit of a longer-term view, as much as that's possible, about what might be planned, what's being planned for the future, so that a family and a student can make an educated choice around what might be coming up. So there seems to be receptivity to that idea, and I think work has already begun on that. You know, longer-term views for some of these things you can only plan out so far, but I think the thoughts are already in the works around, a couple of years out. And so I think it's recognized that might be helpful for students to know what's coming. so that they can be thoughtful around their time and obviously the financial aspect of it too.
Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think I'm going to just jump over D&E for a moment and look at acceptance of the WEF miscellaneous grant awards and curriculum grant awards. And I will read what that is. That's going to be a total of $3,891.79 in the following curriculum grants: $221.80 to Sarah Cerise, art teacher at Wilmington High School, for display images for district art show and high school display cases. $1,950 to Christine Murray, coordinator of behavioral health and social emotional support, for creating supportive environments and equitable classrooms, calming corners for Wildwood and Boutwell early childhood centers. And then the following miscellaneous grants: $1,500 to Lena Phillips, visual arts liaison and visual arts teacher at the West Intermediate, for the 2024 District Art Fair, and $219.99 to Robin Abbott, teacher of postgrad special education at Wilmington High School, for vacation units 1 to 12, full year mega bundle, and supplemental materials. So we thank these staff members for applying for these grants, and we thank WEF for raising the money and granting them. Do we have a motion to approve the WEF grants? Motion by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Samaha. All in favor? And those are approved. All right, and unless there's any discussion needed on the following items, I will take them all together. So that will be approval of the Wildwood MSBA Educational Program Plan, approval of the Student Opportunity Act submission, approval of warrants, grants 23, revolving 46, 47, and 48, local 81 through 84, food service 50 and 51, circuit breaker 22, special education 46 and 47, and payroll for March 27th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Burns, second by Dr. Bryson. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Did I miss anything? A lot of little things
I don't
here.
think so.
I think we got them all. And that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Brand.
Thank you, and thank you for your approval on those previous items. 2 items tonight under the report. The first, just freshly added this evening, is the West Intermediate School principal announcement. It's my pleasure to be able to share with our community. This information, I should say, has already gone out to the West staff as well as families just earlier this afternoon. But after an extensive search, pleased to be able to announce that Michael Walsh has accepted my offer to become the school's next principal, pending our finalized contract negotiations. For those that got to learn a little bit more about Mr. Walsh, you'll know that he comes to us with a whole host and range of experiences that certainly were very impressive. 14 years of public education experience. He's currently the assistant principal in Lawrence at the Emily G. Weatherby School. And prior to that role, he's spent a number of years as the Dean of School Climate and Culture for the same school from 2019 to 21. He has 8 years of teaching experience prior to that at the 8th grade in mathematics. Throughout the search process, we certainly learned an awful lot about him, including his commitment to partnering with families and with staff, underscoring his belief that that provides the best possible outcome for students. There is no question from our visit, particularly to the Weatherby School, that he is a leader who is accessible, he's visible and empathetic as a member of his staff. And so very impressive throughout the process. We were, as I've said before to many, we were fortunate to have a very strong candidate pool in this search, which is great for us, hard for the decision making, but we think, and I think that this opportunity, Mr. Walsh was the best match for us and for the future of the West. So we want to welcome him to our school community, and thank you for all of those who participated in and played a role in helping the search process. I can pause there. I don't know if there are questions or comments, but.
I hear he's got great neighbors too.
Oh, he is. I should have said that. Yes, he's not traveling far from home. He might be able to walk or bike because he is a Wilmington resident. So, the next item tonight is shifting gears. There's no easy way to transition to this, but to the MSBA Wildwood updates. It's not necessarily new business per se, and so hence the decision included here under the report. but an important opportunity to provide the committee with an update. Mr. Boone, were you planning to come forward, or? We have Jason Boone here and his colleague Ronnie, who is on our phone joining us through teleconference. Again, as you know, our partners in our project here, and who we've been working very hard and closely with to try and move this forward. There is an extensive presentation that is in the school committee packet for those members of the community who might be interested in following this. The intention tonight is to not go through all of that information, because if you have been a community member who's following the work of the Wildwood School Building Committee, it's already a report and a presentation that you've shared. But for the interest of this committee and those that did not have the opportunity to follow that tonight, I thought I would underscore some of the key pieces of this, and I'll also provide the committee with a sense of what's to come in the next number of months. This presentation is in the packet as well too. So the school building committee, as I mentioned, we held a last meeting on March the 20th. An extensive amount of information that was shared during that presentation, a lengthy presentation and slideshow that for those that are interested can certainly take a look at. We have met really on average 1 to 2 times per month since December, as we are coming upon a pretty critical point in the project in terms of our plans and need to submit information to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA. At the March 20th meeting, just as a reminder, WSBC is the acronym. There's a lot of acronyms in this work, but that's the Wildwood School Building Committee. At the current time period, there are a total of 15 options that have been identified and are being considered, and were shared with members and have been shared with members of the school committee. Just as a reminder, that total option set may seem a lot. The primary reason for that is, of course, because we're taking a look at school consolidation, and we're taking a look specifically at and exploring the possibility of 3 different grade level configurations: pre-KK, pre-K to 3, and pre-K to grade 5. The total number of options, hence, is coming from that very reality. But we are on the eve of needing to reduce that total number of options to the MSBA, and we need to shortlist that number of possibilities to whittle down 15 to a far more manageable number to advance to the next stage of the project. Our agreement with MSBA, as I've learned through this process, is to be in a place of needing to advance a certain number of options that include 1 alternative from each grade configuration. So again, each grade configuration is pre-KK, pre-K3, pre-K5. One alternative from a renovation as well as new construction, 2 very different things, certainly, and 1 repair alternative for the Wildwood Early Childhood Center itself, so the current still building that stands, as well as consideration of the Woburn and the North for comparison purposes. The question, of course, is from anyone kind of tuning into this as well: how is that decision going to be made? How is that shortlist going to be derived at? There are, as was shared with the school building committee, and included in the presentation, there are a number of criteria that's used as a matrix, if you will, that the design team, our design team, Doran Whittier, and our school building committee have been considering to help inform and make this decision. They're listed here, not necessarily, well, I don't know if any particular order necessarily, but with the exception of number 1, and that's education. And that program plan, I think it's important to note that you just approved, and thank you again for your support on that. That will be submitted to the MSBA. And this report, that program plan, should be thought of as an overarching document that clearly communicates to the MSBA our intent for planning the ideal educational program, no matter what building configuration is ultimately selected. It's adaptable, flexible, I guess, if you will, and it really reflects what we're hoping for and interested in pursuing in a new school facility down the road for whatever grade level configuration is selected. There's a lot more information under each of these categories, and the intention certainly is not to dive into these tonight, but just suffice it to say that there's a lot of dimensions or a lot of aspects that are being considered to help inform the choice. Existing conditions is a term that our designers, and I think those in this field, use these kind of projects. This information is going to be hitting the airwaves, becoming public very, very soon. We've had a chance, our leadership group, to see the preliminary reports. And what this is a very close and thorough assessment of the current conditions or the existing conditions of the 3 schools that are being considered for this project. This work started in the summer and continued through until the fall. Think of it as I've come to understand it, a number of experts in their respective fields, whether it be HVAC or electrical and other aspects of building engineering, coming in and thoroughly evaluating our schools and their current state. It's a requirement of the MSBA program. It's not just because we thought that this would be important to do. It is a requirement, and it provides our community with a clear understanding around what is needed in order to invest in our facilities should new construction not be something thought to be pursued. What will it take to bring these buildings up to code? And what will it take to expand or renovate buildings to meet our educational plan and goals for the future? There were no major red flags. I think that's I apologize, I need to correct that last bullet around, it's an incomplete thought, but the thought was this: there aren't any red flags or dangerous safety conditions of those 3 schools, at least that were found through the analysis and assessment. However, that being said, as you can see on that graph that's included here, this comes directly from that other presentation that I referenced. There are certainly a number of areas throughout the 3 schools that were objectively evaluated to be in the poor or fair condition. And I think that's an important piece to point out as we consider moving ahead and making determinations. So what's next and what's to come? It is a busy and active time where, as I said, we're on the eve of working in partnership with Doran Whittier to submit to the MSBA not only that educational program plan that you just approved, but also that short list of items. We are anticipating that in the first part of April 3rd to be exact, the school building committee will vote on that short list, and this together gets rolled up in what's called the preliminary design plan that will be submitted to the MSBA. I guess I've come to think about this as, at this point in time, based upon all of the information that's been gathered, based upon our educational plan, here's a short list of possible options that we really think we should further pursue and at a much deeper level, including cost estimation. Our design team will continue to work to finalize the documents and then provide those to the town's owner's project manager, which is SMMA. On April the 18th, as we've come to learn, that those documents will be submitted to the MSBA, and then we move on to the next phase if there are questions and such coming from MSBA. We're marching forward pretty quickly thereafter as we hit the spring. It will be a busy time in the summer through until, sort of late April, May through until August. The Wildwood Leadership Group will continue to work with our design team and our OPM. There is an offshoot group, the Sustainability Working Group, that will meet as well. And we will be driving towards that final decision at the end of August that gets our community to the place of one preferred option to move forward in the process. We anticipate that there'll be another public meeting that will be coming fairly quickly thereafter. The Preferred Schematic Report, or PSR, as it's, again, this is all nomenclature that the MSBA uses, so we're conforming to it. But think of this as, after a lot of information gathering, consideration of the options on the table, consideration of the evaluation matrix, and so on, this PSR that we'll be working to submit to the MSBA by the end of August, it represents our preferred design option. So going from 15 right now to a shorter list to ultimately one option. Just again, as a reminder for our community, the decision-making around this is vested to the members of the Wildwood School Building Committee, of which we have broad representation, as you know, from our town leadership groups. There are a number of things that have to happen with this phase of the project. Further evaluation of the site and building designs. If we have to tweak or make any adjustments to the education program, that will be done. We'll also be, with the team's help, reviewing options more carefully around building systems and so on. And you can see there the rest of the workflow. And all goes as planned and as needed to stay active in the program. We will be looking to present to the MSBA the early part of September. And then in turn, we anticipate that at the October 30th meeting, that this project, whatever preferred design it is, will be invited into the next phase of the process with MSBA. So the next steps, there are a couple. March 28th, we had planned for tomorrow night a community forum. It appears like we may need to reschedule that, so stay tuned for more information on that. But we are committed to holding a community forum, but from a posting standpoint, we may need to reschedule that meeting. April 3rd, we do have the Wildwood School Building Committee that is currently planned for, and as mentioned earlier, the primary activity during that meeting. April 18th will be the submission of our preliminary design program to the MSBA, and then May 1st is our next scheduled school building committee meeting. So a lot of information here, a lot of information obviously that's taking place associated with this project. We know we have Mr. Ragsdale as part of the group representing the committee, and Ms. Burns as well. But certainly we know that this is important for our committee and our community to be well informed, and we're going to try to do so as well. I've extended an invitation to provide an update to the Finance Committee as well as the Select Board, similarly to what we're doing here tonight with you. I've heard back from the Finance Committee with an effort to try and schedule something, which is great, and waiting to hear back from the Select Board, so hopefully we'll have that same opportunity in the near future. So with all of that said, I'm happy, or Jason Boone again is here, or Ronnie, to answer any questions that members of the committee may have on any aspect of the project that's included and we've talked about to date.
Mr. Fennelly.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. I have one, maybe two. If you could go back one slide at the very bottom, the MSBA Board of Directors vote. Is there anything that would make them vote no? I know it's a broad question. And I think more importantly, if they were to, let's say, not support the submission, then what? Is it back to the drawing board? Is it, we'll see in a month with some revisions? So how does that process play out?
Great question. If I don't know, Jason, would that be for Ronnie?
I know you wanted to. I know you wanted to stay in the back. Sorry.
Okay. Farthest corner.
I think how we would respond to that is it's very, very rare for the MSBA board to vote down a project when it gets to that stage in the process. That their process is built so that there are these periodic check-ins all along the way, and so nobody's caught by surprise at the schematic design phase when everybody's about to sign the project funding agreement and move forward. In fact, we're only aware of one project where the MSBA has stopped the project at schematic design and said, "Are you sure?" And in that case, the district reevaluated what their preferred option was, changed direction. They didn't have to exit the process or anything, but the MSBA allowed them to continue to move forward. So that's probably the worst case scenario, some sort of pause. But it's very, very rare because of how the MSBA has set up their process for it to get to that point and then something unexpected to happen.
So those, not to put words in your mouth, but those sort of frequent interval check-ins more or less eliminate the possibility that they would.
You never say that it reduces it to zero.
Certainly,
but
of course.
Yes, the process is designed so that the MSBA can weigh in on where you are at every step along the way and provide feedback with every submittal that takes place.
So like if they were not inclined to support your project, you would know it way before then. It would have already come out, and maybe only if you ignored everything they said and plowed ahead anyway would you quite get to that point.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Dr. McCaldy.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a few questions. Maybe start off with a comment. So for anyone that has had questions about it, I thought that schematic slide you showed with kind of the traffic chart about poor to fair clearly shows to me that, regardless how you feel about the schools are, they obviously need work, all three of them. So we need to keep focused on that. Because I know there's been kind of discussion of, well, maybe they're in okay shape and they need a new coat of paint, and that's obviously not the case, right? So it wasn't in the memo, but I think it was in the big deck and also presented at the subcommittee meeting earlier, there were some initial cost estimates that kind of came in. And I had some questions kind of around those and kind of thinking around those. So first question I would ask is, the cost estimates came in. I think it was about $200 million for the pre-K through 5 option. And then I think to renovate the Wildwood, it came in around like 29 million. I remember off the top of my head. I was just wondering, what was the discussion? Like, I unfortunately I couldn't make the meeting. But I was just wondering, what was the discussion amongst the subcommittee about those cost estimates as they came in?
I mean, I'll start. We didn't talk extensively about the costs. I think it was certainly eye-opening and informative to wrap our heads around what current price per square footage is in the industry right now for school construction. I mean, folks like Dorn Whittier and their counterparts in the industry have a closer sense to that, and I'm sure it's ever changing. I don't know if it's weekly or monthly, but probably. So it's quite something. I think I'll just speak for myself and not members of the committee to see what the cost would be to repair only the Wildwood School at anywhere from, and I think it's important to note these are clearly ranges for good reason, but even between a sort of a round number of $25-ish million just to repair the Wildwood. And so I think it's it's a lot to take in. These numbers are high. I think the points that in that slide deck you'll see, for anyone taking a look at the escalation of school construction costs over the last 4 years, and it is something. I mean, if we did a chart like this, I'm sure for our own consumer spending we would be shocked as well for groceries and so on. And I mean, this is at a magnification of so much greater. But I think it's also interesting to note, it was mentioned briefly in that meeting, because I understand that people might go to this sort of place of saying, well, thinking back to the time period in which when this school was built for approximately $80 million, that was a very different time period. Literally, in terms of the time period of 2012, I think, or 20 thereabouts, when those numbers were confirmed. But it was also at a price per square footage, which was vastly different. And if you were to extrapolate how much it would cost to build this building now, I don't have the exact number, but it's far more than 80 million. It's far more than double that price. So
I think the main discussion as far as the cost went was because at this point we're still trying to get down to the short list. Yep. So in previous meetings, we had looked at the evaluation matrix and we'd sort of looked at a scoring of how well do each of these options meet the various goals that we have for what we want this project to be, with the constraints that we have to have something from each configuration, we have to have a new construction, we have to have an ad reno, and we have to have just a repair option. So there are certain requirements that we need to put forward. And then based on the big list we had of like the 18 options, we kind of had narrowed it down to about like sort of the 5 unofficial shortlist. Again, the vote hasn't been taken, but that was kind of the idea. These are the ones that scored the highest. And looking at the cost estimates, what basically came through is it doesn't change any of the relative merits of the options that were already on the shortlist. For example, the new construction was not miles more expensive than the ad renovation, such that it changed the balance of the various options. So mainly we kind of the cost was certainly eye-opening and good to see the first initial estimates. But as far as where we are in the process now of narrowing down to that sort of formal shortlist, the cost actually isn't going to really affect the choice that much, or at least it's not going to change the way that the items were scored because the different options were so similar.
So can I follow on?
Yes, please.
Yes. So I hear what you're saying is that when you looked at building out a new school, like the K through 3 or the pre-K, K, those costs weren't very different. I have a few suggestions maybe for the subcommittee to take a look at, because I do feel that cost needs to be considered immediately as part of this process. I know it's not kind of what is traditionally done with the MSBA, but in the end, I would feel very bad is if the team does all this work and then they present an option which is quite expensive and it gets shot down later on by the town in a couple of years because it came in too expensive. So I think that needs to be considered right now in making sure that the town can handle this financially and what maybe their plans would be tentatively, so then the people in the community have an idea, so people don't jump immediately to the conclusion like my taxes are going to go up, like, and things like that, to build this like monstrous new school, which is not going to be the case, but you can see where people may go with that. So just like a few suggestions I was wondering the subcommittee can take a look at would be, so building the new pre-K through 5 versus renovating all 3 schools. I think that question will come up somewhere, and people are going to look at that delta right there. And then to follow on with that, building the pre-K through 5 versus a new Wildwood and renovating the 2 others, building the new pre-K through 5 versus building a new pre-K 3 and renovating the north, which that last one I think will be more expensive than building a new school. Not so certain about those other 2, especially that first one, because I understand for the subcommittee, not going to really be looking at that option, but I think a lot of people outside the subcommittee will be looking into that potentially. So yeah, I think just to follow on with that too, really important also is to kind of maybe take into account what those estimates on the MSBA reimbursement are. So is it going to be 30%, 35%? That can make certain options look more attractive, right? Because we can get a bigger reimbursement, and then it's almost a like-for-like comparison. Or maybe one option is just a little bit more, but for an extra $10 million, we can get a brand new school. Maybe it's worth it, and then we can kind of figure that out. So anyway, that's my question or comment with that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of discussion, just addressing it, there was a lot of discussion about the reimbursement rate and about when we'll start to find out where that might fall. And again, it's too early in the process now to know what that is, but that's going to be some key things to think about going forward, because obviously how much money we'll get back from the MSBA is going to be a major determinant of what we can actually afford as a project and what the town is willing to go forward with.
Yeah,
Mr. Turner. Yeah.
So one follow up to something you said, Dr. Brandon, and then a question that will help I think with a bit. So when you did mention the high school, that figure was our portion of it. If the high school were built now, the total would have been approximately 2.5 times the $150 million. So somewhere in the range of $375 to $400 million for this building, based on those sorts of square footage estimates that you're giving. So certainly a very different scale, but then that also does tie into the points that Dr. Mercaldi made as well, in that these numbers are gross values as opposed to what would be the net with the MSBA contribution. And that's particularly where, when you look at the idea of the renovations to code, which deals with everything line 2 through 9 on the list, but not number 1, which is educational, would be in the range of $92 to $100 million, $102 million, with 2/3 of that not reimbursable at all. And so that's where the MSBA portion is clearly critical. And I think if you could lay out here, it was mentioned during the last meeting, the timeline. So we have the 5 options now. We go down to the 1 preferred schematic option towards the end of the year. And there's a point in time when we start to have a better sense of what the MSBA contribution might be. And that'll help the community, I think, feel more comfortable with making a decision forward on it. So if you could go to that piece.
So let me correct one thing.
Please.
If the district were to go down the repair-only path, it's unlikely that the MSBA would participate in even the Wildwood repair-only project. So now you're looking at all local share for all 3 of those projects. And, of course, this is at this stage of the game, this is all sort of back of the envelope types of calculations. I often describe it as trying to decide on where you're going to go for vacation and how much is that going to cost, but you don't know who's going, you don't know how long you're going for, and you don't know where you're going yet. So that's sort of where we are in the process. So if you were to execute the repair-only projects, there's any number of assumptions that we could make, but currently our assumption is that you would not do those all at the same time. One, where would all the children go during those repair construction projects? So we would assume that they would be sequential. And so, 2 years, 2.5 years apiece. So to execute all 3 of those could be, almost a 10-year time horizon to perform all of those. So if we were going to calculate sort of the apples to apples picture of what does it take to address pre-K-5 on one particular side of town. That's sort of the kinds of assumptions that we would make. What's the cost to do the repair and do it over a sequential time horizon? And then we could add the subsequent projects for pre-K3, for example, in the same way. And we have done some of that calculation in our office. We just haven't, shared that with anyone yet. So if that's important data, that's certainly something we could look into more. And then in terms of when will we know what the reimbursement rate is, when the district enters the MSBA process, the MSBA establishes what we call a base reimbursement rate. It's sort of the point of departure. And then once we get down to a single option, there's a form, we've talked about it in other meetings, it's called the project budget template, colloquially referred to as the 3011 form. And what it does is identifies all of the eligible costs for the project, the things that the MSBA will pay for. And at the bottom of that form, it calculates the MSBA's maximum allowable grant. Maximum allowable grant. So for this district, that would take place in the spring of 25, right? Just as we're wrapping up the schematic design phase. And it isn't until that moment, right before you sort of negotiate the project funding agreement, that you know what all of the numbers are. Now, having said that, it's not uncommon for design teams, for OPMs, for districts to speculate about what's going to be eligible and prepare those 3011 forms for a very small number of options, just to give you a sense. Right? We haven't done that here, as Mr. Ragsdale said. It's a little too early in the process to perform those calculations, but we could certainly have discussions with the school building committee about whether or not to do that in the PSR phase so that you have at least some sense of what the eligible costs and eligible reimbursement might be.
Jason, could you just clarify for the committee and for those watching at home, you said that the MSBA would not likely support repair-only option.
Yeah, so
why is that? Could you share this?
There are conditions where the MSBA will support repair-only options, but they are typically tied to meeting the district's educational program. And so the current Wildwood project in the existing building, even if we were to repair it, wouldn't have all of the same spaces that are being proposed in the space summary. Right? Many of the spaces wouldn't meet the MSBA's minimum guidelines for pre-kindergarten space. They wouldn't have toilets inside the classrooms. And so it's because of those conditions, right, not meeting your educational needs, that it would be unlikely that the MSBA would participate even in the Wildwood repair-only option.
Mr. Samaha?
Yeah, I just wanted a couple things. Just want to clarify. On April 3rd, that's the short list. And that short list you're expecting is going to be about 5 options, give or take. Is that correct?
April 3rd is the school building committee meeting where they had intended to take the feedback of the public before they make a formal decision on what the short list is. Mm-hmm. I think as a result of tomorrow night's meeting being in question, that date for the school building committee may also be in question, but that's the current plan, yes.
Okay. And then the final design with the one that gets submitted to the MSBA in August.
Correct.
And then they make the decision at the end of October.
The MSBA,
like the MSBA will vote. Their board will vote.
Correct.
On that.
Right. We're submitting in August for an October MSBA board meeting to authorize the project to move into schematic design.
Okay.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you. The other thing that I just wanted to say too is when you're sort of looking at the differences between the different, a pre-K to K, pre-K to 3, and a pre-K to 5, that's when the numbers jump a lot. But I just want to, and I've said this probably every time that this gets brought up, but if we are going to only address the pre-K to K, and you look at that diagram right there, we have these other schools that are big problems for our town, and it's only going to increase. So if we are saying, ballpark like 80 million for a new pre-K to K school, like that's great, but we have these other, you look at the Woburn and the North that still need something, that's going to be, another 80 million, so it just keeps building and building. So I think through this process, one of the things that's going to be really important for us and for everybody involved to be communicating to the community is that it might be a big chunk of change up front, but that's going to save cost over time. I can't stress that enough, because if we don't do something, we're going to find ourselves in a much worse position. If you think about this building, you talk about the cost probably doubling. So if we don't do something where we're addressing all of these buildings, we're going to be looking at astronomical costs over time that are going to, if people are worried about increases in taxes, it's going to be, I don't even know how the town could support, school buildings if we just keep pushing it down, because that's the problem with that we find ourselves in, is as Wilmington has kicked it down the street again and again and again and again and again, and we can't let that happen again. So,
Ms. Burns?
Just to piggyback off of Mr. Samaha, so and I think everybody made very valid and poignant points, but I have to agree in the sense that we can't look at this short-sighted on the front end solely and make the decision only on the front end based on monetarily, because as we know, it would be more financially prudent to have a building that could eradicate the issues we've been dealing with. I know since I've got on with multiple transitions, the multiple housing of aging buildings and the costs that go with that. And it's the cost savings on the back end that we can recoup the costs on the front end, that we need to factor in that decision in the front. I think because by not doing so, if we go with a lesser, if we go through, let's say, the pre-K through K, then it really impacts the educational plan and the hopes that I know not only the schools, but the town has discussed with regards to the multiple transition and what that financial cost is for the operation of our school budget. Never mind, transportation with students in multiple facilities getting to school on time. There's so much things that so many other items within our operational budget we could actually see quite a savings on. Thus, that can go into other areas of programming within this new building. But I just caution about being too short-sighted too early in the game, because we're looking for a building that can last 50, 60 years and not something that we could patch up for another 25, only to find what you have said, Mr. Samaha, it's going to eventually need to create new buildings anyway. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
Yeah, sorry, one more. So I attended the last Wildwood School Building Committee meeting, and there was a lot of discussion towards the end about the conditions of the existing buildings. And I did want to address that piece as well. And I wanted to note that it is very clear that the Public Buildings Department under Mr. Kelly and previously under Mr. Hooper work very, very hard to keep the now two buildings in operation. They invest a lot of time, energy, money, and creativity to repair the issues that come up. While acknowledging that, it's not at all contradictory to say the buildings themselves are very old and worn. From the Wildwood at nearly 70 years old to North and Woburn Street at 62 and 61 years old, these buildings have served their time. We can see the damage and just the wear and tear of their existence. They've seen tens of thousands of students and the accompanying wear that comes with that. The Public Buildings Department is fighting an uphill battle with these. Their efforts are clear, but it's also clear that we're at the end of the useful life of these buildings. The Wildwood is past that point and it could be literally any day with the others. We did not know specifically the day the Wildwood would fail and have to be closed. We are approaching that type of day with these other two buildings. They are no longer functional or adequate as educational spaces. It's time for a new building for the students, teachers, and the staff of this town.
I want to go back to something that Dr. Bergaldi mentioned before about thinking about cost now, and also about thinking about what other potential options there are, for example, like the renovations. One is that while in the meeting, we were, as I mentioned, mostly focused on what the relative cost, whether that changed the relative attractiveness of different options to be shortlisted. But I can assure you that everyone was immediately gaming out all the aspects of these numbers. So as soon as they came in, we were all immediately thinking about, well, what does this mean? And what does this mean as far as getting support for one option? And what's the short-term versus the long-term benefit? So the purpose of the meeting wasn't yet to have those types of discussions, but it was absolutely on our minds. And then as far as options, for example, like just renovating all the 3 schools, the purview of the committee is to work on this one project. So if we're not doing any of these particular, choosing particular project, we can't say, therefore, and therefore we will renovate these other schools. Like the actual plan is going to be, to build a new Wildwood, and we'll renovate the North and Woburn Street, because that's sort of outside of the direct purview of the committee. But again, looking forward, we are absolutely going to be thinking about what that means depending on what project we end up with. Because if we end up with the idea of, let's say, a pre-K through 3, then it implies that something separately has to be done to the north. And that can't be part of like the project itself, but that's clearly going to be part of the decision-making process as we narrow ourselves down to one option. That if we choose something that doesn't address all 3 schools, well then what is the plan going to have to be? Because there has to be something that eventually addresses the schools that aren't part of this project. And so, it can't be sort of in the sense part of the formal discussions, but it absolutely has to be part of the larger decision-making. All right, and I think we're ready to move on. Thank you very much, Dr. Brand.
Thank you,
Jason. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Ronnie.
If I could just real quick before we do, though, I just want to take an opportunity to echo what Mr. Turner said a moment ago relative to the questions and the comments from the last meeting. That meeting is open for public comment to the Wildwood School Building Committee, and as similar to yours, and so we welcome members of the community to come forth and share their thoughts and ideas with the committee. It's a public body. I recognize, as Mr. Turner commented, that some of the comments may have been construed as as criticism of our custodial staff. But I can tell you, I know from the staff members who mentioned those, that was not their intent. It was along the lines of they work very hard with what they have to work with. And there are vast limitations when you're talking about aged facilities of 60, 70 years. We enjoy a great partnership with our custodial staff. I know that our staff think the world of the partnership that they have shown us. Back to the pandemic, where they were there at every turn and every moment, back to the myriad of moves physically of our furnishings for our Wildwood staff. Our facilities department are great partners in support of our work, and I'm confident to say that our staff at large believe that and think that. But there is, at the end of the day, only so much that they can do to adequately ensure that heat is equalized across a boiler that may be very, very old, or leaks that are taking place in a facility that's old. So that's what they're up against, and we certainly recognize the hard work that they do, but there are limitations to what they can do. So, and with that, thank you for your time and for your comments. We will continue to try and keep our community fully informed. All of this information is a lot to take in, but all of it is public and accessible by any member of our community who's interested in following along.
Thank you. Next is public comment. Mr. Fettleman.
Thank you. No public comment received in advance. No members of the public signed up in advance. So, public comment. Okay.
That brings us to new business, and our only item of new business is an informational discussion about the school choice vote coming up.
Sure, thank you. There are a number of documents that are in the packet this evening for this meeting, rather, around the topic of school choice. Really tonight is meant to be informational. This is an annual event, so to speak, an annual requirement of administration and school committees to consider school choice. And so the information that has been provided is to try and remind folks who have been here before, and for those that might be new, to provide an update around the context of what this program, if to call it that, is all about. It is a requirement that we have the school committees in Massachusetts formally make a decision on whether or not to participate in school choice or the school choice program, otherwise known as inter-district school choice. It is actually governed by Massachusetts general law. There's a lot of information if you want to dig into it regarding FAQs and advisories and actually the law itself. Not intended to go through all of that tonight, but certainly happy to take any questions. I think it's important to note, as mentioned in the memo that I provided to you, that it's presumed, sort of the default position, if you will, by the Department of Education, that all public school districts will admit non-resident students. That does not happen for all school districts in the Commonwealth. There are a handful that do, and you can see the most updated list that is captured by the Department of Education. The key thing here is that if a district does not want to participate in school choice, then as a committee, you have to hold a public hearing and you have to take a vote on such. And so the intention here is to lead up to a future meeting, intended to be the next one, in which you'll hold a hearing and consider school choice and what position you want to take as a committee. So there's the advisory you'll notice in the packet. There's the FAQ document on school choice, an overview, as I mentioned, of the most recent positions of districts throughout the Commonwealth as of the 23-24 school year, and the relevant Mass General Law. In short, you can see my recommendation there as we move ahead or we look ahead to next year. We've talked here about this possibility of opening up choice, maybe not for every grade, maybe for some grades. And there's certainly, there's a lot to be thought of around that. But as noted, based upon where we are right now still with our rather tightness of space at the elementary level of now operating 5 school physical buildings, that's a challenge certainly in its own right, and we don't know where we stand as it relates to the MSBA program. As you know, our high school is going to undergo a schedule change for next year that will also have ramifications for the number of seats, literally, in front of our teachers, as well as the rise in student retention from 8th to 9th grade. So all of those factors being what they are, my recommendation to you for consideration would be to not participate in school choice going forward. But again, that's not something I'm asking you to opine on tonight. It's to consider. We would hold the public forum at the next meeting, and then you would deliberate and make a final decision. So happy to take any questions if folks have tonight, but that's all I have on this.
Mr. Turner?
So one quick point and then one question, just for those who have not paid attention to this before. This is all about incoming children, not outgoing children. A parent in Wilmington can choose what they want with their children with regards to other districts that allow students in, or private schools, or whatever the other option they might choose. This is only about whether or not we will actively allow children from other communities into Wilmington. The one question I have is, on the document that's the advisory on inter-district school choice, there's a piece related to financing school choice, and this is a document from 2019. It references that the funding provided by the state, the school choice tuition for students in a regular education program is $5,000 per student. That document's from 2019. Has that number changed at all in the last 4 years?
I don't believe it has. No.
Okay.
It's the most recently posted one from late 2023 is same number. Still $5,000.
So considering all we know about our budget process, it's interesting that that number hasn't changed. Thank you.
Mr. Smaha.
Yeah, Dr. Brand, I'm just wondering if you've had any conversations with any of the leadership of schools that do participate in school choice, and just, if you could share some of that, and if not, if you have that opportunity, I'd be interested to hear what happens in schools that do participate in school choice. How do they view it?
Yeah, I have not myself had conversations. I will say I know Principal Gendron has with a couple of his colleagues that participate in it. But I think in those districts it was rather limited in terms of the number of seats and the grade specifically that it's open to. When you take a look at that list, it varies, right, from all of the grade levels that are in place. I know in the past where where it's come to my attention, there's some districts that are participating in school choice, but they may have opened 10 seats at a particular grade level. So it really varies across the board. But I have not had any direct communication with any of my colleagues who participate.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Fenley.
Well, and real quick, if I could sort of to piggyback on that, I don't recall, but I wonder if we've had that conversation with Mr. Gendron and how he feels about school choice relative to this building. I think the memo makes sense for where we're at right now, but what are his thoughts moving forward, maybe, right?
I can't speak to that. I certainly have talked with him about it. Because of this change in the schedule, he very much would like to go through at least a cycle a year, rather, to see what the impact is on actual scheduling before going down that path. We're expecting, as he presented, quite a change in the schedule and students. It's not expanding the number of students in the building, but it will definitely transform how many students are in each classroom going forward. So because of that, I know his preference would be to pause before taking that step.
Thank
Dr.
you.
McCaldy?
Yep, thanks. So I have two questions. First one, I think I've heard a little bit of answers to, but I'll ask it a little bit more directly. Just for my own education and maybe the community's education, what are the benefits of enrolling in school choice? Obvious, you get more students if you have enrollment down, but are there any others?
Well, I think it would certainly, if you had if you were looking to, say at the high school level, if you were looking to expand a segment of the population to have more students interested in a particular class that may warrant the opportunity or may give rise to the opportunity to run it, you could, but you don't know that. You don't know that because of a couple of reasons, right? You cannot through this process target or select specific group of students. Let's say that we were to open up seats for 25 students at the 9th grade. We have no idea. It has to be a very blind admission process. So it's not like we're looking to, a little whimsical, but to add more student athletes to our football team, and we're wanting to open the doors to them. We have no control over that. Somewhat of a silly example, but sort of that reality so the benefits, if you're looking to round out enrollment perhaps at a certain grade level, I suppose you could, and you could better control that for that. But I think the important thing to note is once you admit students, the district is obligated to retain them in district through until graduation. And if there's any question around what other future building projects in town might bring, or other ebbs and flows in population, that could become a challenge in a different way.
And then just to follow on from that, what do you think would be some maybe acceptable metrics or events that would make us want to consider approving school choice here?
I think to me, I would go to the high school first, and if we continue to see lower student retention from 8th to 9th grade, and if it appears like there's more space with this new schedule, that might be something to seriously consider. We have another reality that we're also exploring, and that is the possibility of opening up a pathway for staff and their children who are non-residents to have their children join. We do not know right now how many might be interested in that. And so I think we would be wise to also understand the impact of that before making a decision.
Okay, thank you.
The other benefit of school choice is that the sending district pays you tuition. That's okay. There's
some, but the district itself does not receive that. The town does. Right? I'm correct about that. I think it goes to the town. Yeah.
Ms. Burns.
I always find it a bit whimsy that this discussion and this vote comes after we've had our discussions for the next fiscal year with our FinCom, and that recommendation is under deliberation by them, which makes it complicated because a couple of the other aspects that you touched upon is that with school choice as well, that as Dr. Brand referenced, that if they require special education services or out-of-district placement, that would actually be on us and not this. Well, I think in reality, I think the municipality that they've come from, I think they do collaborate, but there's a charge which you can't discriminate, which I think rightfully so. If someone wants to come into Wilmington, you come as you are. But I also, that was a good, I appreciate you touching base on the exploration of staff who aren't residents of Wilmington, what that could look like, because I would, ideally, if it's all within our ability legally and possibility I would like to offer that initially, and I think that would be a good segue into future discussions if school choice is the right fit for us, but take into consideration everything that you've outlined in your memo to us. And that aspect, I would like to see that come into fruition first, to see how our district manages that before, and then we can go back and reconsider what our enrollment numbers continue to look like and go from there.
All right, further, Dr. Bryson.
So I feel like we have this conversation, I don't know, every year at this time. Every year I say, oh gosh, I hope next year we'll really consider this. So every year there's going to be another reason why, not quite the right time, but I do think that given the fact that we do have empty seats or seats available in our high school only, I just can't imagine that we're not opening the door and saying, come participate. I think choice provides so much, not just to the Holmes district, but also to those who may not find a good fit in their districts and they're looking for something that maybe they don't have there that they can find here. And if we have it, then I'm sort of like, when will be the right time? There's always going to be another initiative. There's always going to be something else on our list of things that have to get done. And we actually have space. So I just don't know when we're going to, at the high school level, there are seats available in classes. And by allowing, and we can decide how many we want, we can say, we're only gonna open up 5, we're only gonna open up 10. I don't know, I just feel like to sit here and say, it's not the right time, it's not been the right time for as long as I've been sitting in this seat. There's never a good time, and I do think at some point we need to say, okay, really there are many, many benefits to school choice, and there are lots of things to consider. Like, we could wind up paying for an out-of-district, so I understand all that, but I don't think just sitting here and saying, well, it's gonna be hard with the new schedule is really fair to the process. I think we really need to talk to other districts that are doing it. We need to, if we're gonna say no, then we need to say no, because we are positive that this is not the right fit for Wilmington. And every year I sit here and I go, gosh, I just don't feel really good about this. And I can't exactly tell you why, Mike, I can't, but I know that we're not really doing as much as we should be doing in this area, so.
So specifically to that point, the concern I do have is, and it was literally part of the discussion with the FinCom, the seats available this year, there will be 600 additional seats filled next year because the schedule change, we're not adding to the teacher's course load, we're adding to the student's course load. So by definition, I do have a strong sympathy to Mr. Gendron's request on that point. But I do hear what you're saying. There are a lot of benefits for a lot of different reasons to the concept. I hate to focus on this particular point, but I am very concerned with the state leaving a number such as this as a fixed number that has no bearing on inflation. It seems borderline ridiculous. So for lack of a better word, my checkpoint is when they change that, my support would go up dramatically. That should be targeted to something else in the state budget or inflation. There should be some uplift to that, and it should be consistent, and we should be able to plan on it. Because if we're accepting a child at 4.5, 5, who might be in the district through the postgraduate period potentially, that is, upwards of 18 to 20, 17, 18 years of our budget. And if it's at $5,000 today and they haven't made any effort to change it, it could be at $5,000 when that child's 21 years old. So I agree with you. The concept I think is fantastic. There's benefits to the program of allowing our teachers. I fully support that. There's benefits to this. There's benefits to Metco. All of the different programs that help children interact with people outside of their own town. I think are clear. But it bothers me strongly, for lack of a better word, that the state has chosen to build this program this way. I don't think that's an intelligent way to build a program that you want districts to engage in.
Taxpayers' money too, going.
Well, coming and going, yes, for sure.
Further comments? Dr. Bryson?
I don't disagree.
Thank you, Dr. Bryson.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I just think that I would love to dig into this a little bit more.
That's fair.
All right, so that takes us to the end of new business, and we have 2 items listed under old business. The first is Parent Guardian University.
Ms. Elliott, are you there?
Yes, I can.
All right, we have your slide
Can you
deck
hear
up.
me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Thanks. I just wanted to provide an update about Parent Guardian University. We are coming up on April 6th, so we're getting close. And I wanted to just update the committee as well as any community members who are watching. So on Saturday, April 6th, we will run our second Parent Guardian University. Last year was our first launch of the event. This year it will be, as we did last year, it'll be on a Saturday morning at the high school. So we offer childcare drop-off from 8:30 to 9, and in the library we'll have some of our high school and middle school 8th grade students are volunteering to help along with our staff, some of our care staff as well. And we will have a keynote presentation from Lynn Lyons. The topic of that will be Modeling Matters, what parents need to know and do to decrease stress, worry, and anxiety with their students, with their children. We're very excited to have her come for a keynote. She is difficult to book, and we had limited times to be able to select from. I do know that last year we offered this a little bit earlier at the end of March with sports schedules might be the way to go in the future. We're hoping that those schedules will be released soon for spring sports so people will know what their commitments are. With this schedule, we have an opportunity for those who attend to visit our partner organization booths in the cafeteria in between the keynote, or following the keynote and prior to the breakout sessions. And then sessions will, we have 2 half-an-hour sessions, one at 11, and then session B starts at 11:35. In those breakout workshops. In your packet, you have the full schedule, and it is also posted on our website for any community members who want to see the specifics. Some feedback we got last year was that we didn't have the details of each session posted in advance, so now you can see exactly which sessions are happening in session A, and some of them will repeat for session B. In other situations, it's a whole different selection in session B, so people can preview those sessions and decide what they would like to attend. We, of course, would love to have people come for the entire event, but knowing schedules can be difficult, people are welcome to come for any part of it. The keynote only, just come for session A or B, whatever works for schedules. And we have some great presentations this year. We did take the feedback we received from surveys we put out earlier in the fall to really incorporate some new subjects that are new topics that people are interested in, as well as some of the sessions that were really highly rated from last year. We have a digital safety in the age of AI and social media that I anticipate will be well attended. We actually have members of the PAWS organization coming to do a session for us about navigating Wilmington from the parent perspective, some information on English language learners. With the adoption of our new literacy program that we'll be implementing in the fall, we will have an intro for parents for that if people are interested in learning about that early on. So lots of great opportunities. So I do highly encourage folks to check out the website or the packet for the specific sessions that are being offered. We will accept walk-ins, so if you don't register in advance and find you do have time that day, please feel free to come. We do ask that if you think you might be able to come and need childcare, to at least register in advance so that we can plan accordingly for childcare. So that's the update, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any about our Parent Guardian University.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Comments or questions?
Just to say that it was a fantastic event last year. I'm looking forward to going again this year. Very, very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, same echo that last year's was fantastic. The only problem is there are too many good sessions to go to, and you can't get to them all. But it's really, really valuable, and I really encourage people to carve out a little bit of time on your Saturday morning for it.
Great, thank you.
We have a couple of questions.
Dr. Bercaldi.
I will give my turn to Dr. Bryson.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. So, thanks for bringing up about the sports schedules and everything like that. So I can confirm that youth soccer people should know by the end of this week. So about their travel and in town. Yes.
We actually have somebody on our planning committee is one of the soccer coaches, and she keeps thinking that it's coming soon. And I know that's been tricky for families to be waiting for that information. So that's helpful. Once we know that, that will be helpful for people to plan. So.
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely, not that we want the soccer to have a rainy start, but it would certainly help our Wilmington University if we had rain on that day. So if you find that it's a rainy day, feel free to come.
If they're not playing at Shawshene, they'll play.
That's tricky for families, all kidding aside. So in the future, we do hope to, there's a sweet spot of about 2 weeks prior to, in between sports seasons that we hope to aim for in the future. We were a little bit, we really wanted the specific keynote, and we were limited with our options. So we hope to get on that earlier so that we can secure a better date for the future, but hope we will get a good turnout this year as well.
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, and then my other question was kind of around how many people have you had sign up so far?
It's interesting. All of a sudden we're starting to see some of them today. I was just looking at the roster, and we got like 5 or 6 more responses today. So we've had about 50 people respond already that they're coming. I anticipate now that people have a better sense of their calendar within the next week or so to see that grow. We had last year we had, I think we had roughly 60 people attend last year. So I'm hoping that it will be at least as much as last year, if not more.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bryson.
So yes, I forgot what I was going to say now. So let me go first.
You should have taken the turn.
So one, I was going to say, I think the website looks great. Did we do that last year?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What looks great?
The website.
We did the website. We did some updates to it to add a few more things. We added the podcast that Dr. Carrero and I did with the help of Lisa King, and we've updated things just so people can find what they're looking for, and added the sessions to the website this year. Last year we didn't have those up in advance.
So I think that looks great, and I would encourage. I've started sending this site around to friends and neighbors, so I would encourage all of us to just do that, to just keep it on people's radars, because if I don't see it like recurring, I'm like, wait, what's going on? Why is the high school so packed? So I think if we can do our job and just make sure, because although it was a nice turnout last year, I was sitting there going, oh my goodness, this is so good. I wish there were more people here, because the keynote last year wasn't as full as it could have been or should have been, and that's disappointing because there's so much to learn from those keynote speakers, not to mention the other sessions. And the sessions really run from elementary or early all the way through those of us getting prepared to send our kids to college. So it really does appeal to anybody who has a child in the district right now. So so I would encourage us to do that. I love the resources, that you can get the resources on the website. That's great. Go ahead.
We'll upload all of those. Once the presentations happen, we'll upload any slides or handouts or resources so people can access them there. So the more people that register online, we'll be able to also send out emails when things are updated and send any information along as well.
Thank you. And I won't be there. I'm sorry.
We have pushed this out. Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we pushed this out through the district newsletter. We've asked repeatedly all the school principals to socialize this with their newsletters, but it also went a couple of other places, I think, right?
It's been highly socialized, and we have pushed it in every school principal's newsletter. Tracy has done a great job sending it out on a regular basis. For me, it's been within the district newsletter. She's also socialized it with the Apple and different news sources in the community, as well as some of the other town organizations as well, hoping to get other community members to join. So even if, we have the keynote and an auditorium that can house a lot of folks. So it's open to anyone in the community who wants to come. So we're hoping, I believe she's posted it out for other families who might not have children yet in the school, but are coming our way. So we're hoping that all of those communication efforts will pay off.
Can I go one more time?
Dr. Bryce.
And I think the sweet spot for next year is around the 16th and the 23rd of March, because that's really the spot where those of us who have kids who play are sort of like, I saw it all over Instagram, Facebook, like, we had a weekend to ourselves. And that now I feel like this weekend it's going to start up again. So I hope that we get enough people at this event, but I do think that sweeter spot is probably mid-March. Just a little bit earlier, but we take what we can get. When we get Lynn Lyons, we have to, do what we can do. So it's all good. It's all good. I get it.
Well, you should be really proud of it. I mean, there's an army of people working with Christine on this. It's not a small team of our school and district leaders. They meet regularly starting in September, I think it is, with a lot of great events. So we're hopeful that this meets a need for our members of our community, and we're hopeful that the turnout will just grow from year to year. So thanks, Christine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, and that brings us to the joint town hall school admin building update.
Not a lot really to say, except just to make sure that people know this project is still certainly unfolding. You've got some reps on your committee that attend these meetings, although I think there's been a meeting recently for a while. But activity will commence pretty quickly over there. It's our understanding that in April, fencing will start to go up around the Swain parking lot. There will be, as noted, and we've talked about this before, some restrictions for the total number of parking spaces through April, May, and June. And then come the summer, the Swain parking lot will be closed and entirely off limits until school opens in the fall in September. We've brought into the conversation Mr. Gendron and his team. They're well aware of this, and they're planning for what the impact of that is on student parking. I guess the good news is, if there is that of timing, the seniors will be out by the time this really takes effect for their internships and such. So that will be helpful. There's no question, though, this is going to certainly be a little bit of a point of tension around our campus for the time period of the construction. We talked before about the July 4th celebration, and we're thankful rather that we could come to an agreement with the town to still allow that event to take place. There are implications for our high school parking lot and our summer programs, specifically through that time period of June 22nd until July 3rd. A lot of work and a lot of organization, a lot of planning is going on in the district to try and make sure we have that planned for accordingly. So that's, I don't think there's anything else, Paul, from your vantage point or others really at this point. But the shovel will be in the ground fairly soon.
Just want to say that for all the, we have a lot of discussion about the new school building project and about getting our kids into appropriate spaces. But I'm looking forward to getting you and your staff and the central office staff and throughout the district into appropriate working spaces.
Just as a quick point, there was one comment made during the interview process for the town manager position where one of the people specifically said, I hear you're building this new building. It would be great to be in the same space, or would be great to be in the same space as a superintendent, because then you can have more conversations on a more regular basis as opposed to being across town. So, yeah, the benefits of that building will certainly be visible very quickly, I believe.
Thank you.
That brings us to subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports to report? Bryson?
No, I mean, the policy subcommittee met last week, and so there'll be policies coming to you. Just want to let you know, we're still meeting once a month.
Yes.
Prepare for policies.
We're going through a lot of policies.
Great work. Yes. Policies.
There were a lot of policies last week where we were just like, we need to send this to someone. So, but they'll be at our first read at our next meeting.
That's right. All right. Policies incoming.
Incoming
policies. I would talk about the school building committee meeting, except we already had a poll presentation about that, so I don't think any more information is necessary on that point. All right, correspondence?
None this evening.
All right, so future dates, well, to be determined, TBD on the community forum, number 3. April 3rd will be the next school building committee meeting. April 6th, Parent Garden University. April 10th will be our next regular session meeting, our first April meeting at 7 p.m. School vacation week from the 14th to the 19th, and then our second regular session meeting of April will be April 24th. Mr. Turner.
One quick note, the high school and middle school jazz bands will be playing on the 4th of April from 7 to 9 here at the high school. And then Mr. Ingram always does a great job with the updates on the athletic side in his posts, so check those out.
Right. Jazz band on April 4th, 7 to 9. And if there's nothing else, then do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Ms. Burns, second by Mr. Samaha. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
This side very well.